guys. Welcome officially to the Castillo de San Marcos National Monument on behalf of the National Park Service. I've spoken to most of you already, but anyway, good morning. My name's Jeffrey, by the way. I am one of the park rangers here. You're going to figure out real quick, this is not the Smokey the Bear park ranger outfit you usually get to see, and it's not, yeah. What I've got on is a 1740 Spanish Marine uniform, and this is what I get to wear to work every day. I've got this wonderful job here. It's every little boy's dream. I'm part of our living history interpretive staff, and what our job is to go back and rediscover the world that the Castillo was built in and built for, because we want this place to come alive for you guys. I mean, you've got this wonderful opportunity, you get the time travel. Because you've stepped back in one of the oldest standing structures in North America. I mean, this place was started in 1672, so parts of it now are over 339 years old. The only problem is you're stepping back into another world, and unfortunately it's a world that we've forgotten. So my job is basically as an experiment in anthropology. We're trying to go back and rediscover what our ancestors knew. Another way you think of it, you guys ever seen that TV show CSI? Bless you. This is CSI for history. I love what I get to do. You know, no, you guys have obviously come to a special place. We don't make national monuments and parks every day, and even as that goes, there's now 395 in the park system. This is one of the most unique and special you're ever going to be in. Now, there's a lot of reasons why the Castillo is special. Some are going to be pretty obvious, some are not so obvious. The obvious one, of course, is its age, but also its architecture. If you've seen a picture or a drawing of the fort yet, it has this rather strange diamond or star shape to it. That's in a type of military fortification called the Italian style or the bastion system. The shape of the fort maximized the firepower of the cannons that were placed into it. It comes out of the Italian Renaissance. Guys like Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci first started working out these designs. And this is the only 17th century military fortress on this continent built this way. It's even special for what it's made out of. The rock you see in the walls is a rare form of limestone called coquina. Coquina is the Spanish word for tiny shell, because that's what that stuff's made of. Very rare, only found in a couple places in the world. There's about 150 million pounds of it sitting right here, all of it cut and set by hand. So it's an incredible feat of craftsmanship and engineering as well. But to understand this place, how it's gotten here, why it's here, we've got to go back farther than the age of the building itself. Because the story really starts about 500 years ago. So I'm hoping you guys got time, right? I mean, I talk fast, it's okay. But seriously, the beginning of the story starts at the beginning of what we call the colonial era, or the colonial period of history. If you guys remember back to high school, roughly what we're talking about is a block of 300 years, 1500 to 1800. It really all starts in 1492. What happens?
Columbus sailed.
Exactly. Columbus is the tip of the iceberg. What happens is right there at the end of the 15th century, we've got a revolution. It's a revolution in transportation. Ships and navigation have gotten good enough where you can travel around the globe. So you've got all kinds of explorers going out. Not just Columbus. You've got Magellan, Cabot, Diaz, da Gama, Cartier, Hudson. The list goes on and on. What these guys discover is that the world is a lot larger than they thought it was. All of a sudden the Europeans are bumping into what to them are new worlds. First Africa, then Asia, then the Americas. And what they find in these new places is an abundance of natural resources, which you know they're going to exploit. And we're talking good stuff, you know, gold, silver, jewels, pearls, ivory, sugar, timber, spices, exotic plants and animals. This marvelous stuff floods back into Europe, and it changes the history of the world. Europe is coming out of the Middle Ages into the Renaissance. These little kingdoms are now growing in these nation states, fueled by this incoming wealth. But now these nation states are all in competition with each other over who's going to get the goods. So now you've got France, England, Spain, Holland, Portugal, the Ottoman Turks. They're all vying for this massive amount of wealth. One small problem that they have is in 1500, they haven't developed the kind of economic systems we have based on capitalism. So this isn't a world where you can take your money and invest it and create more wealth. It didn't work that way back then. Hasn't been doing that great for us lately either, but that's another story. Okay. They thought there's only so much wealth in the world, it's like a big gigantic pie, right? And of course, everybody's trying to cut the biggest piece out for themselves. And we call that competition for empire, because what they start to do is they start to carve up the world. They start planting colonies, military bases all around the globe, places where they discover this wealth so they can claim those lands for themselves and then protect their interests there. And that's how St. Augustine and the Castillo de San Marcos come to be where they are, and what was known back in the day as Spanish La Florida. The fort itself was literally built as a symbol of the King of Spain and his power and claim over at what that time included all of North America. Now, you do have to use your imagination a little bit, but as you walk around today, guys, picture how this place would have looked like about 250 years ago, because back then it was beautiful. It would have been plastered bright white, inside and out, trimmed off in red. And you'll still see those colors in places as you walk around. The fort looked just like the flag we still fly over today, the red and white cross of Burgundy. Well, no mistaking that. Back then, that's the House of Habsburg, the kings of Spain. And on a bright sunny day, the light reflecting off this place would have blinded you. It would have glowed in the sunshine like a big neon sign. You could see it 7 or 8 miles out at sea. And what that sign says is Spanish, no trespassing. And that's what its job was. So that's kind of logical, makes sense, and comes together, right? So you asked a really simple question. Why here? By the way, guys, you're welcome to sit on the well. I talk a lot. I mean, we're surrounded by this incredible structure. Like I said, 150 million pounds of stone sitting here, right? It takes 23 years just to get the outer walls up. 81 years off and on, the way you see it today. Cost the King of Spain $250,000 pesos to build. That's about 35 million in our economy now. So we're talking a lot of time, a lot of money, a whole lot of sweat to put this building here. And that's what makes no sense. Because guys, welcome to Florida. What do we got?
Swamp.
Sun, sand, and surf, right? Palm trees, alligators, mosquitoes, and hurricanes. You got it. No. There is no gold, there's no jewels, there's no silver, nothing like that. And face it, nobody makes money off the rest until Disney, okay? So, what are they thinking? I mean, why would you put a fort in the middle of no place? There's nothing here.
First thing you see. First thing you see when you come to this side.
Anybody here ever work with real estate? It's all about location, exactly. Brings us to 1513. See him rolling right along. A guy named Juan Ponce de Leon. You've heard of him. This isn't quite the first thing he sees, but, all right. Do you hear that name? What do you automatically think about, by the way? Fountain of Youth. He does not find that, guys. Don't believe what they tell you at the street, okay? It's a great park to visit. Just don't drink that sulfur water. It's nasty stuff. And it won't do any good because I already tried that. We always talk about what Ponce de Leon doesn't discover instead of what he does discover. Ponce de Leon makes one of the greatest discoveries of the 16th century. He never seems to get credit for it. But he's the guy who discovers the Gulf Stream. And the Gulf Stream is the key to understanding St. Augustine and the Castillo. Now, in case you didn't know, the Gulf Stream is the largest ocean current in the world, and it moves more water than all the rivers and streams on the face of this planet combined. It starts out there in the Gulf of Mexico with that beautiful warm water, but at 5 miles an hour, that water constantly pushes itself out between Florida and Cuba. And once it clears the Florida Straits, it turns north and comes right up our coastline. It's only 5 or 10 miles offshore, till just south of us here, Cape Canaveral, where it starts slowly bending out across the Atlantic. So strong a current, it goes all the way across the Atlantic Ocean to Norway. I mean, if you ever wonder how the Vikings lived in those fjords, didn't freeze their backsides off, now you know. Warm water goes halfway around the world and moderates the Scandinavian climate. Now, why would this be important to Ponce de Leon?
Trade.
Yeah, we're talking sailing ships. Only 2 things move them, wind and water. And yet, once the Spanish discover the Gulf Stream is there, and hey, it's going our way. This becomes the superhighway of the New World. This is I-95 heading north. That's what this is, okay? The Spanish are coming out of Colombia, Venezuela, Yucatan. They're finding gold, silver, emeralds, all this great stuff. They meet up in Havana. They come north into the Gulf of Mexico and pick up the Gulf Stream. Free 5-mile-an-hour ride around the peninsula of Florida, up the Atlantic seacoast, where they catch the westerly winds off the Carolinas that sweep them home to Spain. Well, what that means, guys, is every year for almost 300 years, you've got a treasure fleet. Anywhere from a few dozen to a few hundred ships at a time, loaded down with immense wealth coming right up the coast of Florida. And if we get treasure fleets, what do we get? You got it. The French and the English and the Dutch are settling north of us. You think you're going to leave those galleons alone? There's no way. And you can't blame them, because we talk about this pie of wealth. We're not talking about pocket change. Now, the estimates keep going up. We keep finding more of it. I mean, this stuff is still washing up onto the beaches out here. But the latest estimate is something between $1 and $1.5 trillion that Spain pulls out of the New World and sends back home. Which means that if you want to turn pirate, all you need is one lucky day, guys. A Spanish treasure galleon is like a winning lottery ticket, if you're lucky enough to take one. Small boat, just a little one, $40, $50 million. You get one of the big galleons, They found a 1639 silver fleet off about the south coast of England about 5 years ago. They brought up $500 million out of that one boat. Guys, even after taxes, that's good money, okay? All of a sudden, everyone's interested in Florida. Because the entire coastline from here down to the Keys is lined with bays and harbors like the one we've got right out here. Perfect. The Gulf Stream's only a few miles offshore. You're a pirate, you pull into a harbor like this, you hide behind the barrier island, you set up a base camp and you wait for that treasure fleet. Here it comes by on a 5-mile-an-hour current. And you let it pass by. And once it passes by, you run out and pick up one of the stragglers. The devil takes the hindmost. They're so close to shore, you're out and back in a single day, they'll probably never even see you coming. Even if they do, once they pass by, they can't turn back against the current to stop you anyway. I mean, we talk about pirates in the Caribbean, forget that. There's more in Florida and Georgia than anywhere else, because this was where the hunting was. That's why the Castillo and St. Augustine come to be where they are. This town and this fort were put here for one reason, and that was to act as a base to patrol this coastline to give those convoys a chance to get home with the cat. So there's the big glossy brochure story. You know, and we've got some great books in the bookstore. By the way, it's air conditioned in there. You'll love it. About pirates and kings and queens and treasure fleets. And you got to admit, this is exciting stuff. But I got to tell you guys, there's a whole other group of people involved in this. And unfortunately, we tend to forget about them. Theirs really is the more important story. It's the one I get to live every day when I put this uniform on and I come to work. The soldiers and the colonists who come here, it's a little bit different for them. Again, this is 1500. You have to remember, this is a world where you join the army at the age of 15. You join for life. It's a profession. You go to a single duty station for life. And these guys volunteer. They volunteer to come here. Now, halfway around the world, from beautiful sunny Spain to this place. It's a swamp. It's a wilderness. It's hot and humid all the time. We got all these bugs here. They all bite you, right? The natives are not friendly. You're in the middle of no place. You're poorly paid. You're badly supplied. You're attacked by pirates. And the treasure fleets don't even stop here. They just keep going by on the way home to Spain. So with that lovely prospectus in front of you, what are you thinking? Why would you come halfway around the world on a perilous voyage to end up in a wilderness like this? You know there's nothing here. What's your incentive? Because the answer to that is the answer to the entire American colonial experience. And it doesn't matter if we're talking North or South America, Spanish, French, Dutch, Portuguese, or English. The people who come here to stay in the settle come here for one basic thing. It's the one thing that is here. Land. Open land, but that equates to freedom. You have to remember, that does not exist back in the old world. In 1500, Europe is under a feudal system and is becoming overcrowded. What that means is the King of Spain owns Spain. He lends that land out to his nobles. They would rent it out to people like us. So unless someone here was the eldest son of an aristocrat, none of us have a hope of becoming a hidalgo, a landowner. You'll never own your own home. You don't even own your own life, because the day you were born, it's already settled. Who you are, what you're going to do for a living, where you're going to live, what you believe, who you're going to marry, not decisions you make. All of that, though, changes here in the New World for a very simple but very important reason. To get these guys to come here, the governor of Florida had the right to grant them plots of land. They were the old Spanish land grants. That's what we're talking about. Unfortunately, the Spanish were incredible bureaucrats. These guys love paperwork, okay? I mean, they make the IRS look tame. No kidding. But they come up with this novel idea. They give these guys a document that says they own this piece of land. What we would now call a title deed. But it's this brand new idea of personal property ownership that turns everything on its ear. Because back in the old world, you work the land, everything goes to the landlord. Here, you work the land, what happens?
Goes to yours.
Yeah, it's your land. So you clear it off, you put a house on it, you grow crops on it, its value goes up. That value creates opportunity. Buy more land, or maybe run cattle, or maybe you go into business. Now you have a say about who you are and what you can become. And through your own hard work and effort, you could raise yourself economically and socially and have a better life than you could ever have hoped to have back in the old world. And now at the end of it all, because of that little piece of paper, now you can pass it down to your children, give them a step up. They've got a chance at a better life than you had. I'm hoping that sounds vaguely familiar. It's the beginning of what we come to call much later on. Actually, it's 1931. Coined the phrase, the American dream. But, you know, they were thinking the same thing 250 years ago. Thomas Jefferson, you've heard of him, drafts a document. We just celebrated it not long ago, called the Declaration of Independence. In the first draft, he lays down some basic tenets. He says we've got